Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of Business Finance from balmy and breezy Midtown Havre, Montana. So I hope you guys are all enjoying a great semester. We're roughly halfway through the semester and we still have a spring break yet to enjoy. So carry on and enjoy, and I hope everything's going well. We're still working out a few kinks with some of you on Project 1. Keep plugging away at that, please. If you haven't yet received my blessing on completing into some stuff that I used all the time in my banking world. In fact, when I took business finance, this is about all we did was learn how to run these, more specifically on a calculator than on Excel. But with Excel now, I think most of you will probably use Excel rather than going and getting a calculator. I still use the calculator all the time because it's kind of like you guys use your smartphones and whatnot. It's there, it's handy, it's easy, it's small, it's portable, it's lightweight. Did I miss anything? And so for those reasons, that's a lot of times why I'll reach for a calculator. But I can do the same things on Excel. And if I have my tablet with me, for example, I'm just as likely to use my tablet as I would be my calculator, which I don't carry with me all the time. So it's kind of either or. We're just going to kind of hit it a little bit today, actually, and you'll notice for next week I've got some more problems in there, and we're going to get into it a little bit more in depth. Today's problems from Chapter 9 just kind of scratch the surface a little, and you'll see I've devoted 2 weeks to this because I think it's so important. And not only do I think this is important in your future work life, whatever it may be that you're doing, but this is just cool stuff for being able to do it at home. For wondering if you should refinance your home. How do you calculate that? How do you know? I mean, it's easy to read an article where it says, well, if you save 1.5%, blah, 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 it should be, yeah, great. Okay, well, how much? Is it worth the hassle? If I'm going to save $5 a month, is it worth all the time and effort that I might have to go through? Yeah, those are things that we're going to be able to calculate when we're done with this, and far more sophisticated things too. Simple things like car payments, house payments, those types of things. So we'll go through them. Sometimes the terminology can get you led astray too, and when you're talking about an annuity, and you kind of go, what the heck's an annuity? Well, an annuity really is just a loan. Okay, it's just from a different person to a different person, if that makes sense. Really, if you get an annuity, you're lending money to somebody and they're paying it back to you in installments. Okay, and so you'd calculate an annuity just the same way you'd calculate a loan. So sometimes it's easy to get caught up in the terminology and be a little scared by that, but don't be. Okay, and hopefully I'll help you through some of that. So let's get started. If the computer's going to work here, I guess I should have clicked on this a long time ago, and hopefully it'll get to work. So you guys have several problems. 2, I think, and 4 are the starters, and 2 is there isn't one that's similar to it. So I'm just going to show you one example of how to do number 2. And we'll go from there. Make this bigger so hopefully everybody can see, and I'll even make the screen bigger yet here. Okay. So for number 2, it's asking us this, and this is what I'm going to encourage you guys to do first, is take the data that it gives you in the problem and just put it into a format that's like this, exactly like this, or at least very similar to this. Okay, and there's really kind of 5 data points, and if you have 3 of the 5, you can solve for one other, right? So if you have 3, you can solve for a 4th data point. And so when I do these problems, that's all I do is I read them and I say, oh, okay, here's what they're giving me. And so let's take a look. For problem 2, it says this. It says, what is the present value of $7,900 in 10 years at 11%? And again, I've done one that's just similar. Just pick some numbers. And what it's asking you there is, what's the present value? So what would it be worth today if you were going to receive $7,900 in that case in 10 years? Or you could rephrase it and say, how much would I need to invest if I wanted to accumulate $7,900 in 10 years at 11%? Okay, so you can look at it a couple of different ways, and I decided to take a stab and did different numbers. But that money that we're looking at there, that $7,900 in your guys' problem, we're going to call that our future value, because that's what it's going to be worth at some time in the future. And I abbreviate that just FV. You can certainly type out the future value if you'd like, but I abbreviate it just FV for future value. And in my case, I used $10,000 as opposed to the $7,900 that you guys have in your problem. You guys also have a number of periods. It says is 10 years, and I decided to use 20 years. And again, I label that, right? Number of periods, or NPER. Usually I capitalize the P, so I don't know why I didn't there. Probably just slipped on my keyboard. Okay, oh, that's because it makes it small. You rat, doggone Excel. I guess I'll have to live with that. So that's number of periods is 20. My rate is, I used 9%. Your guys' is 11%. And in this case, we enter our rate again as a decimal. So 0.09. Hit enter. And certainly I can change that so it would look like a percent. There we go. Okay. And then what I'm solving for, because what it asks for what's the present value. So I'm going to solve for present value, or V. Okay. And how do I do that? Well, okay, we're going to use this. Get used to using this little FX key. It says insert function. Get used to using this, because for the next couple of weeks you'll be clicking on this an awful lot. I think there's other ways to get to that too, but this is just certainly how I'm used to doing it. Is I click on this, okay, it brings up this little box, and it doesn't allow me to make this bigger. I'm sorry, I wish I could, so that you guys could see what I'm doing. And right now I'm going to cancel out, because what I want to do is delete this so that it's blank, so I can kind of start over and show you guys. So I click on that, and it brings this box up. I'm sorry, the last box it brought up because I'd already had a formula in there. Now right here it says select a category, and typically, since we're in business finance, we're going to be looking for ones that are in the financial category. So let's go ahead and click on financial. Okay, they are alphabetical. Okay, and I'm solving for present value, and I'll just I won't tease you. I'll just tell you that the present value one is PV. Okay, and once you click on it, you can read down here, and it tells you, it says returns the present value of an investment, the total amount that a series of future payments is worth now. Okay, and we don't have a series, we've got a single payment, but that's okay. Okay, and I'll show you. Okay, then it brings up this one. And again, I wish I could make this bigger. It's probably a little tough to see on the screen, but it says rate, number of periods, payment, which we don't have a payment, future value, and then type. And so let's go through these, and here's how I input the stuff. You can actually, you know, I could put in, if my rate, I say it's 9%, so I could put in 0.09. You could do that, and that's fine. I like to do it this way. When I've set things up and I've labeled it here, it says rate, okay, and it's got my cursors flashing there. I can just click on that, and it gives me that cell and puts it in there. Okay, and then NPER, now you see why I labeled this way, is that. Okay, so I can click on that one, and it's done. Payment, I don't have a payment. Okay, remember I said if you have 3 out of the 5, you can solve for another one. I don't have a payment, but I do have a future value. So I'm just going to skip the payment one and come down to future value, get my cursor blinking there. That's kind of important that you make sure you get, future value versus payment. Imagine it'd be a huge difference if you were going to get $10,000 a year for 20 years versus $10,000 at some point in the future. So that's a very common mistake. So that I see. So make sure you keep your payment or future value square. And in this case, I've got a future value. Okay. It actually tells me my answer here that I've got is minus $1,784.31. My type, it says the logical value at the beginning of the period is a logical value, colon, payment at the beginning of the period is equal to 1. Payment at the end of the period is 0 or omitted. And most often, if it doesn't tell us, we're going to assume it's at the end of the period. Okay, and that's the case here. So we can just leave this blank. We could put in a 0, or we can leave it blank, either one. And so I'm just going to leave it blank for simplicity's sake. And I've got this, which is going to be my answer. So I click OK, and it shows up as a negative number. Okay, we're going to have to get used to kind of seeing some negative numbers here, and that's fine. All that's telling us is that this is how much we would have to invest. This is how much, or this is the way I look at it anyhow, how much I'd have to take out of my pocket, right, and spend, write a check for if I were going to invest to have a value of $10,000 in 20 years if I earned 9% interest. Okay, so not too bad. You guys have two more problems, I'm sorry, but they're the exact same. You're just changing the deal, right? So if you wanted to, it might be smart. You could just copy, this. Maybe you can copy it if my computer will get to working here for me. So copy and paste, and there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Paste and. Then all I have to do is go in and change the numbers, right? Okay, because I've got the formulas built in, so if I change the numbers just to match up with what it's given me, I'm in good shape. So, okay. So let's move on to number 4, and I can't remember. Do you guys have number 4? I think so. So I've done again just one that's fairly similar here, and let me make this bigger if I can. Make it quite a bit bigger because I don't need that much room, and that way you guys can see. And so if we read number 4 gets a little bit confusing because it's asking you to kind of physically go through and use the charts that are in the book. If you want to do that, that's fine. Okay. If not, you can do it in the way I'm going to show you, which is the way we just did actually, because again it says you will receive, in this case it's $6,800, and I used a different number, but the discount rate is 10%, so my rate's 10%. What's the value of your investment 2 years from now? I'm going to receive $10,000 in 3 years, it says. So $10,000 is my future value. Okay, my rate it gives me is 10%, or 0.1. Okay, and so I enter that in as a 0.1. And then it says, well, what's it going to be worth in 2 years from now? So I'm receiving, that's where this gets kind of confusing. So I'm receiving this $10,000 in 3 years, but what's it going to be worth in 2 years? And so what that's telling me is I want to know what the net present value is of a 1 year problem. Okay, so I do that just the way I did the other one. I fix up my deals, okay, and I'm solving for present value. One thing I'm going to delete this, and I want to show you that, okay, the last formula that I used was present value. And so when I bring this up, instead of going to financial, I can go to most recently used, and it brings up present value. So I got most recently used there, and I can click on my present value. And again, I use my rate there. My number of periods is 1, and my future value is 10,000. I'll end up with a negative, and again, I can leave my type as 0 because it's at the end. and I end up with $9,090.91. Now, it tells you to go ahead and use the formula or the chart that's on page 283, the very top of page 283, and you can see at 10%, you'd use 0.909, and so that's you could tell if I use 0.909 times $10,000, this is what I would come up with. And so you guys could do that with your $6,800 and basically just multiply it by that. It's kind of nice to set it up this way. I could copy and paste it, and that's probably what you guys want to do, because you're going to want to show me all the answers, right? So I'll go copy and I'll go paste here, and then it says, well, what do I want to do if what's the value of it in 1 year from now, or that's a 2-year then, because it's 2 years from the time of my future value, right? I'm coming back 2 years, and so I put 2 in there. My formula is already still in there, so when I hit my enter key here, it should change my answer, and it does, right? So what's the value of my investment now? Again, I could copy that. I'm just going to quickly go. I'm going to have a 3-year term then. Okay, so it's going to be something less, so 7,500 is what that would be. And again, you probably should copy and paste that so that you'd end up with all 3 answers in your problem. Okay, it's really the same thing. We're still just calculating present values. Okay, we get to a comparison one here now on problem number 6. I think you guys have 7, so I did number 6. And 6 asks us this. It says, and again, we're solving for the same thing, so it's hopefully getting a little repetitious for you so you can do these in your sleep like I do sometimes. Your aunt offered, can you believe that? That I actually wake up sometimes in the middle of the night and I'm trying to do these things kind of in my head? That's sick. I'm just a disturbed person that I could do that, but you know, when you've done it for, you know, all of your adult life, I guess it's hard to get away from. So 6 says your aunt offers you a choice of $20,100 in 20 years or $870 today. If money is discounted at 17%, that means my rate's 17%. Again, one of those fancy terms. They're just trying to confuse you. Which should you choose? So really, I just want to figure out what my present value is. That's what I'm solving for here. And your guys' problem 7 is the same. Okay, and then I want to compare that with what the other number that's given me, which is $870. All right, I put minus 870. Okay, we'll do that, and we'll make it a nice dollar sign. I shouldn't do this fancy stuff because then it makes my computer go slow. Okay. So I set it up the same ways anyhow. Okay, so I've got a future value of 20,100. I've got my number of periods is 20, and my rate is 17% or 0.17. Okay. As you can see, my computer is sort of malfunctioning here at this point in time. I don't know if I could get this thing. I'm going to pause while my computer fixes itself. Okay, so kind of got fixed. I just put the 870 in because that's the amount that we're going to be comparing to. So again, I put in my 20,020, I'm going to delete this and run the formula again just so y'all can see it. So I'm solving for present value because I put that in there. So that's my most recently used, so it comes up, so I can just click OK. My rate, 0.17. My number of periods is 20. And my future value is 20,100. I can click on that, end of the period, so I can leave my type at 0. Click OK. So my choice is this 20,000 is worth $869.92. Boy, they made it nice and close, didn't they? Or I can have $870 today. I would be smart to take the $870 by 8 whole cents. Okay, by 8 whole cents. So, but that would be my answer in this case. And I should type that out. Okay, take the 870, right? Okay, onward. Number 9. I think you guys have. Do you guys have number 9? I think maybe. So I might have done something similar. Yeah, you guys have number 9. So hopefully I did one that's just similar. You're going to receive 205. Oh gosh, I did the answer there. Don't do that. Let me delete that. Gosh, dang it. You're going to receive 200. I got to make sure. Yeah, you guys have 9. I hope you didn't see my answers. $205,000, but I'm going to change this in. You're going to receive, let's say, 150 grand. Oops, 150,000. Let's try. And 150,000. Okay. I'll go with 20 years. Okay. You can see I just set the problem up the same way. I just have 2 columns, right? Okay. And just show you a little shortcut. And we're just going to wonder, let's say that this is 10%. Let's say this is 7%. Okay. It's just asking you to compute what would the difference be, and we want to see, you know, is 10% a huge difference in terms of the change, right? And so what do we expect? That is this going to be smaller or is this going to be bigger? And this is a good lesson, okay? Because if the way I'll look at it is this: if this is a higher interest rate, the other things being equal, if this is a higher interest rate, I would need to invest less money today in order to have a future value of $150,000 as compared to this one, right? And so I'm going to expect that this answer is smaller than this answer. Hopefully I got that right. Let's take a look. So again, we're going to solve for our present value. That's my most recently used, so it pops up for me nicely. My rate, my number of periods, and my future value. Okay. So all this is saying is that if I were to invest $22,297 today and earn 10% on it in 20 years, I would have $150,000. Now again, I would expect this answer to be a little bit higher. I always like to kind of know what my expectations are. Now in this case, I could re-enter the formula, but honestly, I can just copy it over. Okay, and it is higher as I expected. Okay, and so shows up like that. I'm reasonably assured that that's a pretty good answer. So gives me a nice idea of the difference, the impact that it can make having a higher interest rate. So hey, onward to 15. I think you guys have 16, or at least I hope I didn't do your same problem again. Yay. Okay, 15 says this: Sherwin-Williams, good old Sherwin-Williams. They get the darndest names. He's going to receive $18,500 a year for the next 25 years. What a great guy. As a result of a picture he has painted. If a discount rate of 12% is applied, should he be willing to sell out his future rights now for $165,000? So we've got a little change, right? We've got a little change. A little change is simply this. It's that we are now using payments, okay? We're now using payments as opposed to a future value, okay? We're now using payments as opposed to a future value, okay? And so, oops, hang on here, I just want to put a little fill color in there. And so again, write down the information that it gives you. It tells me that I have a payment now of $18,500. I've got periods of 25. And I've got a rate of 12%. Those are just given to me, and so I write them down. I'm still solving for my present value. And I'm going to delete that. Okay. So I'm solving for my present value. And so that's my most recently used, so I can click on that again, and it brings it up. I've got my rate. I've got my number of periods. And I've got a payment. Okay. And my answer in this case, it could come out negative. And I could enter my payment in as a positive. Okay, I'm probably not going to get too excited if you have the positive or the negative. It can be kind of confusing at times, and so I'm probably not going to get terribly excited. I could certainly say that my payment, okay, is going to be the minus 18.5. Right, I can just put a negative in front of this if I want, and that'll convert my answer to a positive number. Okay, it's in a problem like this, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Some other problems, it makes a little more sense, and this one, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. And I'm comparing that to, right, $160,000, $165,000. Okay, well, which one should I pick? Oh, I think I'll take the bigger one, right? So in this case, I should sell out my rights. I should take my $165,000 as opposed to the $18,500. Imagine the consternation that people have when they win the lottery. Should you take the lump sum, or should you take the payments? And there's a lottery win. One gal just stepped forward, right? So should you take the lump sum, or should you take the payments if you have a choice? Sometimes they don't give you a choice, right? Guess what? You'll be able to do some calculations that will help you make that decision. Okay. One of the things obviously right now we're not taking into consideration is the taxes on that. I think a little later in the semester we'll take a look at some of the tax implications that might occur, but at least this gives us the framework, and it's a pretty simple framework to try to determine how those work. So 27. I think you guys have 28, so we'll do 27, which is similar. Okay, now we're switching. Okay, hey, we're going to switch, do something a little bit different. We're going to do a future value. Okay, so this is I like doing future values, and I'll tell you why. Because I think everybody ought to sit down, especially when you're in college and you're just getting close to getting out of college. You ought to start making some plans for retirement. I know that's a long ways off, but you ought to be thinking about what you need to do for retirement. Okay, and the earlier you start, the easier it is. And this is how we can best demonstrate that, is by doing some of these future value calculations. Okay, so we looked at number 27, and it says that, ooh, it's kind of a long one, right? And it talks about, as stated in the chapter, annuity payments are assumed to come at the end of each period. Okay, and again, it's talking about an annuity here, but we could just talk about an investment. We could call it something different. Okay, but it gives us some information, and that's the most important thing. It says, what's the future value of a 15-year annuity? Okay, so we got the number of periods are 15, right? It gives us our rate is 12%. Okay, and then it tells us that our amount is, if I can find it in there, $1,800 per year. So we've got a payment, right, of $1,800. Number of periods are 15. My rate's 12%. And in this case, I'm going to solve for I think that's what it asks me. What is the future value of that? Okay, and we've been doing present value so far, but I'm going to delete. I click up here, and I'm going to look for, under financial, I'm going to come down for the F's and click future value, and it looks very much the same as the present value one, right? Okay, except for instead of here where it said future value, and now it says present value. So, okay, and so we've got a rate of, it gives it to us. We've got our number of periods of 15. Okay, I'm going to not do the present value because I actually have a payment in this case. In this case, I do want to enter it in as a minus, because that's what's going to leave my pocket. That's what I'm going to put in as an investment, right? Okay, and I'll show you another way we can do that. But this tells me, and as you might expect, if we were investing money, we'd invest it at the start of the period, right? We would take that out of our pocket and put that in, okay, right now. And so, and it tells me, it gives me that in the problem. It says if it's at the beginning of the period, I want to put a 1 in there. You see, my answer would have been 67, but if I invest at the start of each period, it goes up to 75, and that's the correct answer. Okay, I should have made that a little bit bigger. I apologize for that. Okay, and that's after just 15 years. Here's the important thing, right? Think about that. If you work for 40 years, so you started putting away $1,800 a year, which is only $150 a month, way less than a car payment, and you worked for 40 years, how much money would you have then? So from 25 to 65, when you retire, just $150 a month. It's too big. It doesn't fit in there. Okay, I'm stretching. It still doesn't fit. Look at that. Okay, $1.5 million. $1.5 million. Okay, that's getting 12%. I'm going to tell you 12% is maybe a little ambitious. but it gives you an idea. I'm not going to say that you can't get 12% if you look for some somewhat aggressive. If you've invested in a small cap index fund, historically it's probably been in that 12% range. 150 a month to have $1.5 million at retirement, yeah, not a bad idea. Now if you waited, until you were 35 to start that, that's all you'd have. Okay, so that first 10 years is just a key. It's just an absolute key, to success. So be thinking about that. We'll work on some other problems that are like that. So 32. Okay, I think you guys have 33. Yep. Okay, so let's make this one a little bit bigger. I didn't do that very well last time. Oh, it's giving us a different thing here now. Okay, it tells us Franklin Templeton. There's a Franklin Templeton fund, so that's probably why they named it after that, which is a mutual fund company. He just invested $9,260 for his son, who's a year old. Money will be used for his son's education 18 years from now. He calculates that he will need $71,231 by the time the boy goes to school. Okay. What rate of return will Mr. Templeton need in order to achieve this goal? Okay. So again, put in the information that it gives me. It gives me my present value, 9,260. It gives me the number of periods, which is 18, and it tells me what my expected or hoped for future value is, and what I got to solve for here is the rate. Guess what? There is a rate formula. I'm still under financial there, and it's actually called, it's a surprising and weird name. It's called rate. It returns the rate. And look at that. It looks just like our other one. Okay. This time we have future value, present value, payment, number of periods. We know 3 of those, right? Okay, so my number of periods are 18. I don't have a payment, right? Okay, but I do have a present value, and I do need to enter this in as a negative number. Otherwise, I think I'm going to get goofed up. So I'm going to put this in as a negative number because that's what my investment was. That's what left my pocket. Okay, so it's this, my present value. And then I have a future value, which is this, which is given to me. Okay, tells me what my answer is, 0.12, which is going to be 12% then, right? Okay, and that is the correct answer. So pretty simple, right? Calculating the rate, do it just like the others. Onward, 38, which is much like your guys' I think 39 that you have assigned. Yep. Okay, so setting this one up, spend a little time setting it up, and I think you'll be happy. First, it tells me for 38, it says this. It says Del Monte will receive the following payments at the end of the next 3 years: $2,000, $3,500, $4,500. Then from the end of the 4th through the end of the 10th year, he will receive an annuity of $5,000 per year at a discount rate of 9%. What's the present value of all 3 future payments? Your guys' is the same. You're going to have a couple more years. So I set it up like this. You might differ. You might do it on the side here, set it up in a different format. But the way I did it was this. I just said, okay, here's my information first, and I set this up. For year 1, I've got $2,000. I've got just 1 year. Okay, what's the present value of that $2,000 that I'm going to receive at the end of year 1? And my discount rate's 9%. And I run my present value formula, which again quickly. Boom, I'm going to go to most recently used. It's the 3rd one down now. Okay, got my rate. Got my number of periods, 1. And I've got my payment. I don't have a payment, I'm sorry, I have a future value of 2,000. Okay, so that gives me that. Now, I can plug in, just going to delete these. Hang on a second here. I'm sorry, I had to sneeze. So, for the second payment I'm going to receive is at the end of year 2, and that's $3,500, 2 years, 9%. Third payment's $4,500, 3 years, and 9%. So I enter in all that data. My formula I can just copy over because it's going to make reference to these items up here. It's going to give me some numbers there. Cool. Okay. And then lastly, though, this gets to be a little bit more complicated. It says from years 4 through 10, I'm going to receive an annuity of $5,000 per year, which is a payment. Okay, $5,000 per year. So I had started this. It's kind of why I leave some blank lines sometimes, and I just came here and I put my payment up here, and that's the $5,000. Okay, and I've got number of periods are 7. How'd I get to 7? Well, because I had to use my fingers, honest. So I had to go 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I got 7 fingers up, so that's why I knew that it was 7 years, and I got 9%. I'm still solving for present value, right? But in this case, I'm solving using a payment. Okay, so present value, okay. My rate, I can move this a little bit. My rate's this. My number of periods then is 7, and my payment amount is 5,000. And I end up with that. And I think it does ask me to give a total, which I haven't done yet. So I would have to come here and do an auto sum. It does that. It sums up those 3. So I end up with a minus $33,420. That's the present value of this type of an annuity stream or payment stream that I would receive in the future. Okay, this is how much that would be worth today, is what that's telling me. And your guys' is, again, is quite similar, so should be able to get through that. Good. Enough of that. Let's talk for a few minutes about Project 2. Okay. Project 2 is going to be, everybody's going to do a paper, okay, a little research paper regarding a publicly traded company, okay, and we're going to start that. I'm breaking that down into some components here at the start so that I can kind of walk you through without getting too aggressive on finding this information and whatnot. But so the first component is finding a ticker symbol for a company. What happens here is that companies that are traded, that are publicly traded on the U.S. Stock Exchange. I'm going to give you some limitations maybe as we go through this, but companies that are publicly traded all have what's called a ticker symbol. It's generally from 1 to 4 letters. Okay, generally from 1 to 4 letters. And what we want to do is, for the first assignment, is simply find that. Okay. To do that, of course, you're going to have to choose a company. So what kind of company should you choose? And I've had a few people ask me about this. It looks like I'm actually a week ahead, but I want to get going on it a little bit for those of you that are interested. Okay, choose a relatively small company, probably, okay, or at least choose a company that has a kind of a single focus. I hope that makes sense. Choosing GE, General Electric, would not be a good choice. General Electric's a huge conglomerate. Okay, you're going to be limited to 5 pages on this report, and so to try to break down all of the various components of General Electric and give me a financial report on that, impossible, right? Okay, and so rather than pick GE, pick something that's a little bit smaller. Okay, I'll give you a list. I got some here from last semester. I got Buckle, I got Ruger, Sam, which was Samuel Adams, or Boston Brewing Company actually, TAP, which was a bigger company, but that's Molson Coors, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, Tesla, that was kind of interesting. I wouldn't choose Tesla normally. Had one student choose Crocs, Lithium Motors, Under Armour, Eli for Callaway. That's Callaway Golf, is ELY is their ticker symbol. Verizon, that's a big company too. That one might have been a little bit too big. And then Northwestern and H&R Block. So interesting selections there. Gives you an idea of what students have looked for. Okay. I use Bing. You guys probably use Google or Yahoo or God only knows what anymore. Okay, so I just bring up my search deal, and here's one way to find a ticker symbol. So let's say I want to find the ticker symbol for, oh golly, what would be a good company? there's not that many publicly traded beer brewing companies, so I got to kind of stay away from that. I'm going to try to stay away. I think that you're going to want to stay away from foreign-owned companies. Okay, some of them trade here in the U.S., and we could probably find ticker symbols for some of those foreign-owned companies, but it gets to be, again, a little bit more complicated, and so I'm trying to guide you toward things that are less complicated when we do this. So, somebody, let's see. How about Levi's? I don't even know. Does Levi Strauss still have? Somebody, we were looking at Carhartt the other day, and they didn't have. They're not publicly traded, so I might be able to just type in this and ticker symbol. Oops. Levi. I don't know if Levi Strauss is publicly traded either, but we'll find out maybe. This is one way to just start your search. Just kind of do it. Ooh, okay, no, that doesn't work. So this is a good example of one that doesn't work, because I'm reading right now just off my little brief thing here. It says the famous jean manufacturer Levi Strauss's ticker symbol is LEVSTRP, except it says the stock is privately held by family members and it is not traded publicly. Okay, so sorry, I'm not going to be able to use that one. Okay, so let's back up and try to find another company. I'm going to use I'll use one that we had from the last semester, if I can get my computer to work here. Look up the Boston Beer Company, maybe if I can. So I'm sorry about this delay, this doggone. So I can have a break and take a sip or two of coffee here while I'm waiting for this darn thing to respond. So this must be this program, BB Flashback, must just use all kinds of CPUs. So instead of Levi Strauss, let's take a look at ticker symbol Boston Beer. Yeah, great. I typed it, but it didn't want to type. So let's see again. BOSTON, Boston Beer Company. Hit my search. Wait for a half an hour. See what it brings up. Look at there. Okay. Sam stock quote, Boston Beer Company Inc. Okay, the stock. Sam. Yep. It even comes down and it gives me some other stuff. In this case, it's from MSN, and we may find that, or not find that MSN's a good source for doing this. Again, I used Bing. You guys probably use Google, so you'll get a similar deal here. Okay, so now I know what it is. Okay, I'll give you another place to go look, and I found that this to be a really good site of the sites that I've used, and I'm anxious if you guys have another one. To research these companies, great. But the one that we've used a lot in the past, and it's been a good one, is called Morningstar. Okay, and so let's plug that in and go to, hopefully we'll plug it in. They do have some pretty pictures in the background on this Bing search thing, right? So hopefully we'll get this thing working, and we'll go to more. Star. Oops, it comes up, so I can just click on it. Okay, and I want to do stocks. I could click on the main one, that's fine, but I do want to do stocks, and so I can come down here and wait until it loads up. There we go. Click on it. Morningstar's I found that their site, for looking up the basic financial information for companies, is just a really good site. Okay, now it does bring it up. I'm in the stocks. okay, I can come up here and remember that ticker symbol, and so you could affirm. This would be a good way to affirm that your ticker symbol is what you're looking for. So I type in SAM, which is what that said. It brings up Boston Beer Company. Got to be careful. It also brings up this Starcore International Mines Limited, which is a Toronto company, right? Then it brings up some other ones that have other letters behind them. But I know that I'm looking for the Boston Beer Company, so I can click on that, or click on the quote, and it's going to bring up some basic information. I'm not going to get into this yet because this will be for kind of your assignment number 2 when we get that far, right? Okay, but this gives me some really nice basic information. I can also do a search here. If I want to use this just to try to find a ticker symbol, I can do a search here. And so let's do, because this one's kind of a weird one because the symbol's different, but let's go to Callaway Golf. I hope that that's works. I hope that this one works. I haven't used Morningstar actually for too many searches, so yeah, and it kind of brings up, you know, a bit of a weird one. I might have to look through, you know, some of these things, okay, to try to find. Here we go. I come down here, and when it puts it in parentheses like this, that tells me then what the ticker symbol is. You guys might not know that though. You know, if you didn't know what the ticker symbol was, right? Okay, it was Eli Callaway, and I think that's why he gets the ELY, even though I think it was ELI, his name. But okay, so you guys might not know that. You could probably click on one of these articles and read through it, and it would tell you. So, you know, finding a ticker symbol using Morningstar isn't necessarily the best way. Again, you might just want to come to your search engine and type in ticker symbol Callaway Golf. There you go. NASDAQ, Eli, stock quote, okay. Eli, again, it gives me those things. It tells me that it's trading on the New York Stock Exchange. Bingo. Okay, then I can come here and I can put it in just to affirm it. Hit the quote. And there we go. Callaway Golf Company, Eli. Ooh, I spelled it wrong. Maybe that was my problem. Callaway instead of Callaway. So, okay. So it gives you a couple different ways to look it up. You can also sometimes go right to the company's website, and ultimately we'll do that when we get a little further along and we're looking maybe for annual reports and stuff. But you can actually go to the company's website and look for investor information or some such, and that'll oftentimes take you to something that's the ticker. But I've really found that, you know, just going to your search deal and typing in something like ticker symbol, you'll find it. If you have some problems, you know, let me know. Let me know what the company is, okay? One that came up yesterday, one of the students was in and said, oh, you know, like this or this. And I said, well, what about Carhartt's, you know, clothing? You know, she was looking at clothing. And so we typed in Carhartt. Much like Levi Strauss, we found that it's a family-owned company. And so it's not going to work for this project. The reason we can't do family-owned companies, by the way, is that when they're family owned or if they're not publicly traded, the financial information isn't available. Okay, they don't have to disclose anything. They're under no obligation to disclose things. So you wouldn't be able to find the information that we're going to need to complete this report. So that's why we can't do private companies, but we can do public companies. So have at her. If you have some problems, just let me know. Say, hey, I can't find the ticker symbol for XYZ company, and I'm happy to help you out on Project 1. We're getting an early start, so good enough. We'll get into next week's assignment. We're going to look at a lot more stuff using present value, future values, payments, all those other things. So we've got a lot more of that coming up. It's a great thing to do to just experiment if you want to. You know, start messing around with some of the stuff and other questions in the chapter, maybe about payments and other present value things, and just think of weird